The majority of the news leading up to the January transfer window has said that Chelsea are likely going to be relatively inactive. But that doesn't stop silly season, and let's be honest, can Blueco really keep their hands out of their pockets for an entire window? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today we're talking about transfers, silly season. There's more than a 3-day break in the football, so now all of a sudden transfer stories are knocking out the wazoo and they are all over the place. We have got so much to get into today. But guys, before we get into it, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so we've got a lot to get into, man, so let's just crack on. We'll start with, it kind of makes sense, to be honest. So Fabrizio Romano has come out and put the absolute kibosh on Chelsea going in for Morgan Rogers in January. That was a bit of a dream anyway, but the fact that he's come out and said so means there was obviously some sort of noise going on in the background that Chelsea might be interested in getting his signature. Morgan Rogers is having a phenomenal season, and it was typified by last night's performance against Manchester United, in which he scored 2 goals, one of which was an absolute screamer. But also, he recently just signed a contract extension, right? So in any world that anyone goes in for Morgan Rogers, it's going to be 100 mil plus, it's going to be ridiculous money. And as much as we would love to see him and Cole Palmer doing the old dual cold celebration when one assists the other for a goal, Fabrizio Romano is saying that's absolutely not happening in January. Now, that's not crazy to think anyway, and I'm not going to lie, I think it even might be a bridge a bit too far even for the summer to spend that much money on a player that we already have in a certain position. So the thing is, like, just to expand on it a little bit more, Morgan Rogers often starts on left wing for Aston Villa, but he's not really a left winger. This is the thing. Unai Emery's system allows Morgan Rogers almost all of the time to start on the left and drift inside. And if you look at his heat maps, he's not a left winger, really. He starts out on the left wing, but he very, very, very often drifts inside into attacking midfield positions. So even if we did buy him, we're not buying him to compete with Alejandro Garnacho and Jamie Gittins. He would be coming in to play in a centre attacking role in Maresca's system, particularly. So I love Morgan Rogers, and I would love to see us have gone in for him when we were talking about Xavi Simons and Fermin Lopez, and we ended up with Facundo Buonanotte. But at the same time, I think now he might just be a little bit too big, and ultimately he's going to come in and he's really going to pack up that midfield. Do you know what I mean? I would absolutely love to see Morgan Rogers here, but like I say, positionally, he's not a left winger, so we're not buying him, like I say, to compete with those kind of sides. And if Cole Palmer can get back to the form that we know he can, then it would be definitely quite difficult to fit him into the team anyway. But we move on. Axel Disasi is in the news again. It's not a news story, but it is kind of good to see that this story is being revisited, because it means it might actually happen. Axel Disasi is still attracting interest from AC Milan in Italy. They play with 3 at the back. They're really happy with all 3 of their centre-backs playing in that role at the moment, but ultimately they are a little bit worried about their depth for the rest of the season. We're going to lose money on Axel Disasi. No one's going to pay a huge amount. If we get 20 mil for him, I think, to be honest, that would probably be reasonable at the end of the day. And I'm not even sure we'd get that. That might be an issue. Italian teams not classically, willing to go and splurge huge amounts of money. And notably, AC Milan are a little bit concerned that Axel Disasi hasn't played football for like 6 months. I don't even think he featured in the Club World Cup, did he? So we're literally talking, the last time we saw Axel Disasi must have been the back end of last season. So we're talking like a really, really long time now. Axel Disasi has to go. Hopefully this time in the bomb squad has said to him, actually, do you know what? I probably should have just taken one of the many moves that were offered to me in the summer, although there was no one in Europe coming in for him to buy him, which is what he wants to do. But at the end of the day, he's got to be not loving life at the moment, as he's training with the under-21s. He's only trained with the first team once. He's got absolutely no chance of getting back into the squad at all. And that's kind of a good thing. I don't think, if we're going to bring players into the squad, I don't see Axel Disasi as being any better than Tosin Adarabioyo. Tosin Adarabioyo also could be on the way out. So at the end of the day, Axel Disasi to Milan works really, really well for us. It doesn't work in terms of like monetary value, because we're going to lose money on him, but he hasn't developed and he hasn't been able to play, so we can't really expect anything else. Either way, I like Axel Disasi as a character, as a person, in his interviews and the funny little Chelsea videos when they like cook together and stuff. Like, he's a laugh, man. He seems like a really good guy, but as far as him as a footballer goes, there isn't space for him in the squad, and he isn't good enough. He doesn't level us up at all. If anything, he might even bring the level down a little bit more. So ultimately, I do think Axel Disasi to Milan is something I would really, really, really like to see happen. So, targets. There are some new targets, and this is, like I say, this is getting interesting because all of the news, especially Fabrizio Romano, came out and said Chelsea not going to do anything in January. But at the end of the day, things have changed a little bit since then, haven't they? So, Blueco, Chelsea have identified midfield as an area that needs strengthening, and you can 100% see why that is. We're playing fullbacks in midfield all of the time. Literally, at Atalanta, we finished with 3 fullbacks in midfield. Reece James playing a lot in midfield at the moment, and he's good at it, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, with him and Malagusto's played in the 10 like 2 or 3 times now. Do you know what I mean? It's just getting a bit silly at this point. So, midfield is an area that needs strengthening. At the end of the day, if we had all of the midfielders that we actually own available to us that are in the squad at the moment, this wouldn't be a problem. But Romeo Lavia has just been an issue, hasn't he? Since we bought him, truth be told, this isn't new with Romeo Lavia. This is his second season with us now, and he's just not able to stay fit at all. Absolutely not able to stay fit. I talked about this in a previous video. I think the best thing for him to do would be to get a loan move somewhere. That's probably not going to happen till the summer, because as far as I'm aware, he's still out as it is right now. But he needs to go and get minutes somewhere that's a bit less physically intense so he can recover but get game time at the same time. Our other option should have been Dario Asugo, who we bought at the same time as Giovanni Quenda last January, so that will be like a year ago, basically coming up to this window. He featured maybe once at the start of the season, went on international duty, got injured, and we haven't seen him since. So the issue with these long-term injuries is it's not as simple as, oh, they're back from injury, so the depth is there again. It's like, look at, like I say, Romeo Lavia, Liam Delap spent so much time out, and he didn't just come back into the squad and start banging him in. He's rusty. He's going to need to build back into it. And we barely saw anything of Dario Asugo. And he's had basically 0 time playing in the Premier League either. So even if Dario Asugo does come back, we can't expect just to throw him straight into the mix. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely not going to happen. So Chelsea have identified midfield as a place to strengthen. And there is a target. His name is Ayoub Bouadi, and he is an 18-year-old midfielder currently plying his trade at Lille. He is a centre defensive midfielder. He's featured 20 times for them across all competitions. No goals, 1 assist. He is probably in and around the same sort of level as Dario Asugo, and ultimately will be there to take some of that pressure off the likes of Moises Caicedo and maybe make it so we don't have to play the likes of Reece James and Malagusto in midfield quite so much. He's particularly gifted with a long ball, which is good because that's something we are seeing a bit more from Chelsea at the moment, but at the same time, it's, he's not going to come in and storm the midfield and challenge any of the guys we've got, but it would be good just to have an option there, wouldn't it? We're really, really, really light in the midfield spot at the moment. For some reason, Maresca doesn't seem to have a huge amount of trust in Andre Santos either. You would have thought that as much as we rotate our team, Andre Santos has really, really struggled to get minutes. And he's not being able to develop. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure what it is. Maybe Maresca isn't seeing enough from him yet. But either way, another midfielder in the engine room for the second half of the season would be a good thing. You'd have to worry, wouldn't you? Bearing in mind, it's a World Cup year as well. Do you know what I mean? It's a World Cup year, and Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez are both going to play a huge amount of football after the season. Even just thinking about going into next season, if we play them every single game in the second half of the season, and then they both play in their respective World Cup campaigns, then ultimately we might be looking at 2 absolutely knackered midfielders before the next season starts. So we need to bring something in. If we do anything in January, now I don't know whether it's going to be this kid at the end of the day. He is another 18-year-old from Liga. We saw the same with Matisse Mugu, and he barely featured for us at the back end of last season after we bought him either. But at the same time, we need a midfielder in at the very least, even if it is just to get the odd rotational game to make sure that the likes of Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez are getting more rest, even thinking as far as the beginning of next season, bearing in mind there's a World Cup coming up. So there's a striker, and it's a striker that will be familiar to some, if not all. His name is Vitor Roque. So Vitor Roque used to be, he was a Barcelona La Masia graduate, young Brazilian lad who didn't quite make it in a Barcelona shirt and moved to Palmeiras. He is killing it in the Brazilian league. The Brazilian league is just about to wrap up. That's why we've seen Thiago Silva sign for FC Porto, and Vitor Roque has made no bare bones about his dream to return to Europe one day. He scored 20 goals for Palmeiras last season, man. That's really, really good. And at the end of the day, you got to think, yes, there's a general drop in the league quality, but when it's a relatively young player, I think he's like 22, something like that. And look at Esteval Willian. Esteval Willian, he hasn't been able to come and just dominate the Premier League, but for an 18-year-old, he's coming in, he's putting goals away, and he's becoming an important part of the team. So there's, some sort of idea that Vitor Roque could potentially come in. It's a real shame because Liam Delap has just, again, been injured for so long and, a suspension that has curtailed his development. He's only scored 1 goal in 11 games against the 10-man Barcelona, and unfortunately has not been hugely reliable. And as I mentioned with Dario Asugo before, even when Liam Delap comes back in, it's not like he just comes back in and starts banging him away. He's developing, he'll need to shake off the rust or whatever. So getting a Vitor Roque that's just played a full season with Palmeiras in Brazil and he's scored a boatload of goals could be an interesting idea, man, depending on the price, of course. At the end of the day, João Pedro is not a really striker-y striker. Do you know what I mean? And he scored 6 goals now, which is, it's not great, is it? Let's be completely honest. 5 of those have come in the Premier League. It just looks like we need more support, man. Mark Yu, don't get me wrong, I love Mark Yu, but Mark Yu isn't getting enough game time to develop here either. And Mark Yu would be a reasonable third choice option. I'm 100% down with Mark Yu being the third choice option. But when we need to win games and get goals, at the moment, we can't be looking at Mark Yu being like, you're the guy either. So Vitor Roque obviously backs himself. Great season out in Brazil. Young lad. I haven't seen anything about prices, and there are some other teams interested in him as well. But ultimately, if we are going to sign a striker in January, it's not a terrible idea. Like, we're not going to go out and spend 80 mil on a first choice striker. I personally would love to see Joaquin Panicelli come into the club. I would also be happy to see Emmanuel Omega be brought back early from Strasbourg. Well, it's not really a loan, is it? We've kind of bought him, but we haven't registered him yet, and he's still playing at Strasbourg. I would love to see that, but I'm not sure either of those two are going to come in. Strasbourg are having a really good season, and you would think that taking one of those two away might curtail them. And ultimately, we're all owned by the same group. So, as to not decimate Strasbourg's season, leaving those two out there, I do understand it. So, if we could go in for someone like a Vitor Roque, then that'd be interesting. It would make things difficult in the summer when Omega comes in and Liam Delap is back and fit and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It would create a future headache for sure. But looking at the second half of this season, if we want Champions League, a domestic cup and a reasonable run in the Champions League, if João Pedro scores another 6 goals all season, is that going to be enough to get us there? I'm not so sure. And we get on to the last story. This is a fascinating one as well. So, more than a year ago now, I think. I can't even remember when it was. It might have been last winter. It might have been a year ago. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it was last January. Chelsea bought a very young player in Aaron Anselmino, an Argentinian centre-back who did get into the squad a little bit in the pre-season in the Club World Cup, ultimately didn't play very many minutes, and was loaned out to Dortmund at the beginning of the season. Really interesting with Aaron Anselmino. So he started amazingly and then got injured straight away and spent quite a long time out injured, but he's quite recently come back and has now featured 9 times for Borussia Dortmund. So the interesting thing about Aaron Anselmino is he had a clause in his contract, the loan contract, saying that Chelsea can recall him to the squad if he didn't meet a quota of minutes. He hasn't met that quota of minutes. Now, this seems a little bit unfair because ultimately the reason he hasn't met that quota of minutes is because he's been injured for all of this time. But whenever he's played, he's been really, really good. He's got a goal and an assist and is currently sporting an overall who scored rating of 7.1 over 9 appearances. For an 18-year-old, that's really, really, really good, man. He's doing really good. Another interesting factor to this story here is a couple of weeks ago, Dortmund actually contacted us about buying him permanently. So they are enjoying him so much. Do you know what I mean? They think he's such a good player and he fits so well in their team. The manager obviously loves him that they were like, okay, we'd like to turn this loan into a permanent deal. And Chelsea said, no, we see him as part of the squad going forward. And yes, he is 18, but he is doing really, really well. So instead, what is interesting is if Chelsea can't go out and buy loads of players, like maybe we can get a young, League One midfielder. Maybe Vitor Roque might be on the table because he's not going to be super expensive, bearing in mind he's coming from Palmeiras. At the end of the day, maybe instead of going out and shelling out on a centre-back, now Thiago Silva's not available as well, maybe bringing Aaron Anselmino back into the squad could be a good idea. He's having a better season than Tosin Adarabioyo is. He's having a better season than Benoit Badiashile is as well, albeit having been injured for a while. What Maresca and we as fans probably won't love about this is throwing another teenager into the squad that is just going to bring the average age down, and what we really feel like we need to go forward for the rest of this season is experience. And that isn't necessarily what we're going to get if we bring Aaron Anselmino back, but he is having a good season, man, and he might not have a huge amount of experience, but he's got raw talent, and at the moment he is proving that out in Dortmund. They're third in the league at the moment, and he, as of when he's played, has been a really important part of that, and when he's been available, has been on the team sheet a lot for their manager. Interesting one, man, interesting one. It's one of them, isn't it? Like, I'm sure what Maresca wants is experience, but at the same time, it's difficult. We're in a difficult position where we can't just go out and spend loads and loads and loads of money. Do you know what I mean? January was also always going to be quiet, to be honest, but we are in a position where we've already bought all of these players, so rather than going out and spending loads of money on new players, like for instance, I love the idea of Murillo from Nottingham Forest. I think he's great. I think Castello Lucaba from Red Bull Leipzig looks really good as well, but these guys are going to cost the cash monies. Aaron Anselmino is a player that we already own, and he's a player that's on form, and due to a technicality, it might be possible to add him back into the squad in January. I would love to know what you guys think about this. Do you think leave him out in Dortmund, let him keep developing, and then either bring him into the squad or sell him at the end of the season? So basically the question for me is, like, would you rather have Aaron Anselmino come back into the squad or no one? Because that is potentially what we might be looking at. We're probably not going to go out and spend 50-60 mil. I would love to, don't get me wrong, but spending 50-60 mil on a good quality centre-back to come in right now maybe isn't an option, and Aaron Anselmino could be an option. So guys, tell me in the comments, what do you think about it? So that's it, guys. I'm going to start wrapping the video up there, but silly season, it's here, but a lot of these stories don't even seem that silly, do they? We need a midfielder, so I don't know loads about this guy from Liga. He's having a reasonably good season there and is being trusted. He's getting quite a lot of game time. He plays the same position that Moises Caicedo does, albeit differently, and he's much younger and has less experience. It's sad because it's just like, it's, very much the model. Do you know what I mean? When we talk about Aaron Anselmino, we talk about Vitor Roque, we talk about Ayoub from Lille, they're all still really young players, so we don't seem to be looking at any experienced players really to come into the squad and get it done. Morgan Rogers has been an absolute no, I get that based on the money, but of all of the players that I've talked about today, he easily represents the most experienced player, and that's absolutely not someone we're going to look at. So what do you think, guys? What do you think? Are any of these transfer stories interesting to you? Like I say, Ayoub, okay, I get it. He's a young midfielder. He's playing a reasonable amount in Ligue 1 at the moment, but we saw the same thing with Matisse Mugu. He came in and barely got a sniff. Vitor Roque, maybe that one could make sense. I'm yet to see any prices. That's going to be the thing. If it's 50-60 mil, it's going to be a no. If it's anywhere from 20 to 30, maybe there's a possibility in there, but I do foresee that creating a future summer headache with all of the other players that we're going to have available to us, with Omega coming in and Liam Delap being hopefully back and fit from injury by that point. And Aaron Anselmino, man, a player that we already own that, due to a technicality, could be recalled in January and ultimately could help us bolster our defence. Is he ready for it yet? Like I say, does he stay out there on loan and develop? Tell me what you guys think. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. If you did, I hope you're having an absolutely wicked day, a joyous winter solstice to everyone from wherever you're watching from, however you're going to be celebrating it or not celebrating it. If you're just going to be chilling and having a good time, that's absolutely wicked too. I hope everyone has an absolutely wicked week. I'll be back very soon with more news and updates, because I imagine they're going to start coming in thick and fast now. Have a wicked day. I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.